Name of my company is Hyphen8 Media Partners. And what we do basically now, we started out as a talent management business. I rep talent all over the world. So between talent, brand deals, and IP, that's what we used to do, production. Back in the old days, we did a lot of packaging. So most of my work was packaging deals. So if I have John in a film, I'll pull a writer, director, and package that, and then try and sell that. That's back in the day. That's what we used to do mostly, as well as rep talent, right? So now what we do is we turn star power into stock value by building creator-led businesses, studios, rights clean delivery, which means we handle rights through global windows. So talent, ourselves, and investors sharing the upside. The Hollywood game has changed. So what we do now is we wrap IP around the talent, right? And I'll explain that more. So I'm going to come back to this. So we're like a hybrid IP company. So we're a talent and IP firm. I don't just I rep talent now who have IP and who have some form of credibility. And as an actor, I'll give you what that means for you. Initially, when I started my company, and this is like the third guise of my company, I changed the name from Fluent. I come up with these funny names because it's based on what I'm going through at the time. It went from Fluent to the stunt group, because at the time, I don't know, I was working with a lot of stunt guys. And now Hyphen8, because we are in the business of repping multi-hyphenates. So I could rep an actor, sports, musician. I've done it all, right? So that's what Hyphen8, that's where the name came from. And like I said, our mission is really to transform creative and sports talent to globally recognized IP owners through representation, production, and strategic partnerships. That's the part of the new playbook, and you start to really understand that a little bit more. And I'll get, as I go through this, you start to see what I'm really talking about. Next slide, please. Okay, now for actors, this slide is for you, right? Don't look on the right side yet. If you go on IMDb right now, you will see there's about, I think it's about 15 million personal records on IMDb. That includes actors, directors, writers, etc., etc. Do I really need this mic? I do? And what we're saying is there's about 3 to 4 million actors or performer adjacent roles globally. In the US, you got 160,000 on SAG, at least 200,000. You can look at the numbers. And here in Nollywood, there's about 1 million people across the industry, 100,000 actors plus. There's no union. There is a union, I think. There's an actors union, right? Right. And pretty much a lot of independent. The number I want you to pay attention to in Nollywood is there's about 3,000 films per year in Nollywood being done, but only probably 12% of that have a formal casting process, what my guy was talking about. There's no real formal casting process. I'm a casting director, there's not many of those. Now, when you now flip that and look at what's really, what's available globally, and I want to talk globally because everyone always, when they meet me, they say, how do I get to Hollywood? And me and Toyosi had this fight one day when I said, Toyosi, Hollywood is not the benchmark. And she was ready for war. But what I meant by that, and we had the conversation, is that Hollywood is not the benchmark anymore. You can build a career from here, right? Hollywood has about 600 films a year, about 18,000 roles. You know, in terms of series, it's about 28,000. Meaningful roles, there's 43,800, maybe 45,000. And only very tiny of those is Damson Idris, Tom Cruise, Denzel Washington, all those guys. I always remember those guys, those conversations have been had before before you see the breakdown. Before it goes public, Denzel is in the film. He knows what he's doing, right? In Nollywood, same, 2,500 films, 15 to 20 speaking roles per film. That's 40,000 to 50,000 roles a year. Maybe give or take, maybe a bit more. And then only 5 to 10% of these films meaningfully advance careers. I like to be honest with people, right? So I'm not going to gaslight you and say everybody here is going to be a superstar. It's never going to happen. Right? If there's 50 of us in this room, probably about 3 of you will make it. No, I don't want the next slide. Go back. Why is he jumping the gun? I'll tell you when to move the slide, right? So the bottom line, and if you have questions, you can ask me. There's about 2 million people worldwide who identify themselves as actors. There's probably more, right? And they're all supposedly actively auditioning. So if we think, what's the true number of people competing for screen time? It's about 3 million, 3 to 5 million, give or take, right? So when people come to me and say, how do I get to Hollywood? I want you to think about this, right? Because this is how difficult it is. So when I say to people, build your career from here, this is a very young industry, right? And listen, I understand it's hard work. Sometimes it's difficult to. But I want you to think about these numbers every time you think, how am I going to get to Hollywood? Particularly, right, there's only 18,000 roles in movies, 25,000 in TV, right? Level playing field, you're competing for very few roles, and there's millions of actors. So that's the first slide, and I can share this information. You can find this information, it's online, you can find it. You know what I mean? But I'm saying that to say, every time you think, I've got to get to there, I want you to always remember, I've got to be a superstar here. Right? Same with music, same with any field you're in. I got tired of hearing, and I lived in LA for a long time, I lived in New York, I was very sold on the pipe dream. I want to be the biggest agent. I became an agent because, you probably don't know, Charles King was the first black super agent. I used to rep Tyler Perry. So that's who we all looked up to, because he was the first. Charles King now owns Macro Studios, owns M88, talent management firm, and Macro Ventures. So we all kind of look up to, well, if we're on the management side, we look up to Charles King. If you're on the production, directing side, you can look up to Tyler Perry if you want. But that's your business. Next slide, please. And please, if you have questions, please ask me. And this is the first time I'm actually using slides. I don't use, I just talk. But I figured here they like slides. So I'm not gonna go through this, but you can see it. This is the reality, right? Every meaningful role, there's almost, I'll say 150 actors that are competing globally. For every career-changing role, there's about 300 actors. Right? For Hollywood leads, so Denzel and those guys, it's closer to 1 in 1,000. Right? Bollywood is the ratio is a bit. No, it's even, look. I think Bollywood is about 1,500, and here it's about 1 to 2,000 people, maybe more. So what's happening in the industry, right? And why did I call this the new playbook? The pipeline is shrinking. Hollywood is shrinking. We had this conversation downstairs just before I came out. You know, what's going on in Hollywood? That's what people say. What's going on? I'm like, nothing. There's nothing going on in Hollywood. Most films are produced, nobody shoots in LA. They're trying now, Dallas, they're bringing back rebates. All your favorite films, Mission Impossible, all those films were shot in Europe. Now you got films being shot in South Africa, Abu Dhabi, Saudi now, you know, Asia. So there's that, all that is happening in Hollywood, right? So back in the day, if you're an actor, and I'm not purposely pointing to you guys, I'm just, as an actor, I would say, sorry, what's your name, bro? Not you. My guy.
Aries.
Huh?
Aries.
Aries.
Yeah, Aries.
And you, man?
Atlanta.
Atlanta.
Yeah.
Nice to meet you guys. So back in the day, I would say, hey, Aries, Atlanta, you know what? Pilot season is happening. You've heard of pilot season, right? And I'll say, yeah, go to LA for 4 weeks, get your audition thing, get ready, and just go fight the battle. And if you're lucky, you get something. Because you pick up a pilot, you may get in a pilot, And then all that collapsed. There's no more pilot season. Scripted series output dropped 15 to 20%, and it's dropping every day. Film financing, the streaming, Netflix and Prime Video and the streaming platforms came, and they changed the game for everybody. Look at that, independent film financing in the US dropped by 60%, right? So that's what's going on globally. So what does that really mean is, and you can see it, and I'll say it, right? It's this. That's what's going on, right? Because access, even though production shrunk, but access widened because everything was digital, so it's not easy. It's easy for me to submit my show reel or whatever digitally, right? And then there's fewer breakout opportunities. And there's a chapter in my book called No One Is Coming to Save You. You must build your own pipeline. So that's what the new playbook is about. Next slide, please. And we'll talk about no one's coming to save you, because no one really is. Because no one cares, honestly. Are you sure this is the next slide? Okay. For any of you who work at brands, this is why brands should also care about what's happening. What did the internet do? What did Instagram and TikTok do? Too many talent options, not enough distinct personal brands, high noise to impact ratio. Every time you watch a brand ad or some influencer ad, you're probably sitting there thinking, I could do this. Do you know what I mean? Because what I learned over here, and don't just think I'm just here talking. I worked here for 4 years. I was commercial director at Trace TV, MTV. I launched a Warner Brothers agency here, and then I was at Temple Management for 3 months or something. Let's not talk about that, but I was there for a few months. So I kind of knew the industry here. And what brands globally prefer now is talent who own audiences. And that doesn't mean just because you got 5 million followers, you own your audience. Because the attention span is very limited. Do you know what I mean? If you've got great engagement, if you post, let's say you got 1 million followers and you post and you got 100,000 people coming in on your post, you've got a pretty good relationship with your audience. And that's what it's about, relationship with the audience, right? Brands should care because they want creatives who produce their own IP. Talent who can move markets. And not this is reach, how much reach. At the end of the day, for a brand, that doesn't really matter. Because now if you look at all the Hollywood guys, they're doing brand equity deals, right? So I always say you got to become the talent brands need, not the one waiting for casting to save you. So how do you do that, I guess, is the question we're going to all delve into, right? And I need you to help me delve into it. You got to ask me questions because my experience is on the other side. Next slide. I want to leave this up there for a few seconds. I want you to read it. So, when we all, during COVID, right, I actually took a break from the industry during COVID. But when we all realized how bad COVID was and the world settled, and you as a creative, what was the first, what was the thing that went through your mind? What did you really think? And let's be upfront, be truthful. I took a break during COVID. Do you know what I did during COVID? I volunteered at a hospital. That's what I did. My sister worked at one, so I had no choice really. Well, I couldn't really let her go out every day, and I was just at home watching TV, and she's coming back and having to desanitize outside the door in the beginning. So I just jumped in, prayed, and I never caught COVID, and I was I volunteered as a hospital porter. So I was carrying COVID patients every day. But I did that for me because this industry's flaky. What do we really do? We're not saving lives. We ain't doing anything. We're living our dreams. We're having fun, right? So let me ask, during COVID, what was going through your mind as a creative? And what was going through your mind during schooling when COVID was going on?
So not about how to finish.
So it was about how to survive, really. Yeah. I mean, here it was different. I mean, where I was, it was locked down. Like, we were locked down for months. We were looking at Nigeria thinking, shit, I need to go to Nigeria because this working 12 hours at a hospital and then not being able to do anything was very different experience. But it gave me a lot of time. I did 2 master's degrees during COVID, online. I had a lot of time. That's what I'm leading to. We had what? A lot of time. You were at home. You were locked down. You had time to really think. So I did a sports management degree, master's. I did because my background is in law. I went to law school. So I said, let me go back and finish or do my master's. So I did a master's in sports law. Just a lot of time, a lot of reading, so I did that. But it gave me a lot of time, how am I going to survive the next wave, right? Okay, we lost you. Right. So what I'm saying is, you are not just, it's no longer about just you. People, you see, I try to tell talent, you got to see yourself bigger than I'm in this city, even though this is your starting point, right? You're now, what the internet did, and COVID made us all realize it, we're part of this big, huge global village. I think during COVID, Idris Elba tried to do some monologue program. He was posting monologues and asking people to post monologues. And people tried that. It didn't really work. And then, of course, with casting now, you send a self-tape from anywhere in the world. It could happen. It could happen for you. So the whole space was democratized even more than it had been, right? And it keeps getting smaller and smaller. So this idea that, and I used to say, just focus on what you're doing here and somebody will discover you. And they might, right? But this question, while I was writing the book and I think talking one night with some friends and talent, it's a huge question. How do you become impossible to ignore? How? Do you know what I mean? When an actor walks into a room to audition, to me, what should be in your mind is, how do you become impossible to ignore? Especially if you walk into a room and you have the director and the writer there, I think you have a better chance. If you walk into a room and it's just casting, it's subjective. Do you know what I mean? But if you got the director and the writer, that's your A game. That's when you should put that, because, and I always say, if the director gives you notes in that doesn't mean you get the role, but those opportunities make a difference. But if it's just casting, just do the thing and turn around and leave, right? Because I think you have a better chance when the director and the writer in the room, because they know what they've written, they know the vision they have, right? So I always tell people, casting is still a very subjective thing. People are always saying, can you introduce me to some casting directors? Yeah, but you're just part of they've got a crib sheet that they've got to go through and stuff like that, right? So I want you guys, right, to take this question with you and always think about it. in anything you do in this space, because it's a really important question. I think you can disagree if you want. For years, this is all we did. We'll find the work, the agent negotiates, lawyer cleans up the deal, you're the product. Brands, you only see them as commercial opportunities. How can I get that ad? So if you look at traditional agencies now, they've either got a commercial division or you've got commercial specific agencies who just do ads. Do you know what I mean? And that's how we used to do. And intellectual property belonged to the studios, networks, and labels. That's how it was. So it was easily split. It was easy. I want to be a manager. I want to be an agent. I want to be a lawyer. And then you, the talent, we're just putting you in front of casting, and then you're getting your whatever. So now, in this business, everything you do is about representation. Representation is the foundation. Everything I've ever done in my life, representation has been the foundation. When I was at law school, it was about how I represented myself. Do you know what I mean? When I left law school and decided I didn't want to be a lawyer, but it was also about how I represented what I learned at law school. Do you know what I mean? That's where I learned how to speak in public. I spent a year at law school learning how to be a lawyer. After my degree, I knew the theory, but now, how am I going to be a lawyer? How am I going to be able to bamboozle you when I talk? That's what you learn at law school, just making that plain and simple. So now it's about being an operating system. Talent, you guys are now media companies, IP owners, brand ecosystems, product equity engines, community platforms. That's the new playbook. Circle that, and that's how you interpret that is the new playbook and who you are, right? So I remember I was in someone's office, I'm not going to say who, and the talent manager came to see that person who managed one of the biggest musicians in Nigeria. And his question was, I want to be more than just the manager. And I said, look, you got to see yourself as this. You have to. If you don't, that's fine. If you're happy to just survive as a one-dimensional individual, that's a choice, and that's okay, right? But if you want to play in this new world, you've got to be these things. So I always say representation must now deliver business architecture. So when you look at yourself from being, if you're a music producer, then you've got to become more than a music producer. You've got to get into publishing. You've got to see what's happening in digital. You've got to see in terms of merch and all that. There's a space where you can expand the world you live in, right? And I always encourage people, listen, these things, it's not easy to do, but you got to take one step at a time, right? For the actors in the room, I'm an actor today, tomorrow I'm a producer, I'm writing. Do you know what I mean? It's the steps. Ricky Gervais produces, writes, and directs, right? He produces because he controls the money. He writes because it came from his head. And he directs because what's in his head, he's the only person that can put it out there. So that's why he does that. To play in this new era, you've got to be more than one thing. But at the same time, if you just want to do that one thing, that's also okay. But I think you've got to do it with the knowledge of everything that's happening around you and how those things function to enable you to be that one thing. So for the actor, you got to understand production, you got to understand licensing, distribution. Because when you go into a room or when someone is negotiating with you, for example, you're in a film, Netflix buys the film, you know what I mean? When you're negotiating and their distribution plan is global and you've negotiated, this is my fee, right? And that your fee is locked in, there's no back end. So I'm saying you got to understand everything else around you so that you're able to negotiate much better. Do you know what I mean? Because if you're just an actor, someone can say, well, this is your fee and that's it. But the film that your face is helping to turn into this global IP that everybody wants to see, but you've just received this one fee, you feel a little slighted and a little cheated. I would. Do you know what I mean? Because no one sees the producer. When I produce a film, no one knows who the fuck I am. Oh, shit, excuse my French. No one knows who the fish I am. So I'm just saying, you can still be one thing, but just understand everything else that's going on around you. So I'm talking to the talent managers now. The new representation model, there's 7 pillars from my perspective, right? You are no longer an individual, and talent as well. Talent is not, you're a company with multiple business lines, acting, content, IP, brand collaborations. You got the social commerce era, ownership, and community. If you're not looking at all those things, because over here, as an actor, let's just say they see you on screen. From screen, the brands know who you are. They want to use you for a campaign, right? Brand collaborations, right? People want to tap into your social commerce because you got X amount of followers or whatever. You're now getting into content because they're asking you to create content, or you want to make your own films. So you're becoming a business enterprise. That's why the first thing when someone signs to any agency, any management company, will tell you to set yourself up as a limited company, right? Because I'm not paying Aries or Atlanta or Toyosi, I'm paying your company. First of all, that gives you better tax breaks where I come from. I don't know about here. Don't send an invoice anymore as you as an individual. Send it as a company, because in January the tax laws change in Nigeria as well. Second pillar, career IP co-development. As a manager, you got to build up IP with a talent. From short series, podcast, books, formats, docuseries, sports properties. For us, when we rep talent who have IP, we're repping a talent now who's a director. 2 of his next feature documentaries are needing more finance. So we wrap that talent around those IP that need more finance. So we take that to the finance companies because they understand that they can invest in this IP. They're not thinking I'm investing in the individual. They're investing in the IP. So the return is locked into the IP. So everyone from us, the management company, the talent, and the investor, they share in the upside because you all own a piece of the equity in the IP, right? And of course, data is the leverage. Leverage is key. It's a key word that I think talent should always remember. How am I leveraging this opportunity? How am I leveraging this production, this piece of content, this brand collaboration? You know, so we have no choice but to focus on audience data, platform insights, CPM value. So for like YouTube filmmakers here, because the RPM in Nigeria is so minuscule, you've got to focus on diaspora audience. You know, but even that is becoming even harder to leverage now, because YouTube here is now becoming so stretched because everybody wants to produce their own and be on YouTube, and the algorithm gets stretched even more and more. You got to look at return on investment models for brands, your performance dashboards. You got to understand algorithm. There's some guy at YouTube that sits all day. He's like, that Toyosi, he's made that film is doing too many numbers, you know. And they're like, yeah, let me just tweak the algorithm. You know, let me reduce the amount of views. That's what they do, because it doesn't pay them to keep overpaying, to just keep paying. They've got a budget, and they will not go above that budget. Do you know what I mean? So when they say RPM in Nigeria, I think it's like under 50 cents to 1,000 views. Yeah, so some is 10. It's ridiculous. It's like, so you got to work really hard. You got to understand what's going on. It pays you to have 1 million views in Nigeria, right? Because your audience is from here. But it pays you even more to have 100,000 from the UK, because you're earning more money. Do you know what I mean? Get your 1 million from here to expand what's going on. But your 100,000 is what's giving you the money. You got to go into multi-platform identity. So you then look at yourself as an individual and you think, okay, what am I into? How can I leverage that? How can I turn that into money? Do you know what I mean? How can I turn that into, the first thing, after I left law school, started my own company, my old man told me, let your business pay for your lifestyle. Same with your talent. Always be mindful when you see that guy rolling up in the range, the rolls. What's paying for that lifestyle? Because if it's you paying for that lifestyle, you don't understand this business. Do you understand what I mean by that? Let your talent pay for your lifestyle. Your talent is your business. Let that pay for your lifestyle. And that doesn't mean because they're cutting you a paycheck, that paycheck, I'm going to splurge it on this. No. The profit from a business is what pays for your lifestyle. Yes. Because I work in entertainment and sports, I can make my social life very related to my business, if you know what I mean. I can get someone to invite me to a club and hang with my boys, but I'm getting paid for it. And I think, so talent that's well-known, talent anywhere in the world, that's what I'm saying, let your business pay for your lifestyle. If you want to take your girl out to dinner, there's a restaurant that's seeing your movies. They'll be happy to have you. Do you understand what I'm saying? That's what I'm saying, is let your business pay for your lifestyle. Don't ever come out of pocket. That's the thing. I learned that thing. I've been bankrupt twice. I learned that because what we do a lot of the time, you're making all this money and that money, then I'm living this. Then, I started to see, if you study the world's billionaires, right, they don't spend anything. They don't even pay tax. Do you know what I mean? If they want to, okay, Mr. Gates comes in, the Gates Foundation. Do you know how much tax breaks he gets for doing that? So you just got to be switched on. I want people to be successful, especially young people, because you got to start. All this is about just thinking outside the box. This playbook, it's not the rule book, but it gives you a starting point, right? In how to, your next 10 years, how to phase it and how to plan it. So if you call your business Aries Limited, so everything is around that. So all your communication, if a brand wants to talk to you, please send the email to this thing, the management or Aries, my assistant. Do you know what I mean? There's a very rich guy once said to me, perceptive money on paper is better than real money, right? If I have an agreement now, like now we've got 3 films in development, and if I take those agreements, those deals that are on paper, I take that to a finance company, I'm able to raise more money because it's perceived that I am doing this. So I think as a talent, it's understanding, okay, what are the pillars I want to, as part of who I am. So whether it's you want to do more brand collaborations, and then it's take your experience on the screen, the films you've done, how well they've done, and package that into your story, right? Because a lot of the time you're telling a story. So what is your story? And you have to build that story around your brand and your IP. That's what I mean, right? And that's the same way to do it, because somebody's going to invest in you based on track record. Does that make sense? So that's the way. Right now, I think a lot of talent, especially here, still doing things individually. But I think as the industry we're such a young industry here that everything that Hollywood has gone through, we've seen it, and we have to say, well, we don't want to go through that. Do you know what I mean? The problem here is there's a lot of division, and There's a lot of people working in silos. Um, you know, when somebody does something, somebody else wants to do the same thing instead of collaborating. I think there's power in collaboration too. You can actually make more money if there's more of you trying to do something than one of you trying to do it. All that time Netflix was here and everybody was going individually, I always said if we came together and came with one co-production deal, we would be able to do more. Representation teams have changed. You now need, okay, at different stages of your career, not right at the start. At the highest level, so for us, we have all this in place. So the Johns, the Jimmys, they have all of this in place. Whatever they're posting, they're doing these, no, they have someone that's taking, I mean, some of them handle their own pages, they can post, but when it's time, like if we're releasing a film, we know what we're doing. We know what kind of posts, we know what kind of magazines we're talking to. We know what kind of clothes we're putting them in and stuff like that. And now careers are global. You have to be built for everywhere. You know, my second book is called Africa is IP. Because look at what's happening. It's all about us. It's all about our music, our films, our stories. Do you know what I mean? So you've got to, the next 10 years, you've got to be ready to play. So you've got to scale into markets, not wait for markets to come. When you build scale, no one can say no, no one can turn it down. Next slide, please. I hope this is all making sense. Please ask questions. Any questions? Anything I've missed, anything you want to know from my experiences, just please ask. Right. So now this is what's happening in Hollywood. A lot of agencies and management companies are morphing into this talent and IP operation. You know, where it's all about these things. You know, as a talent, IP, which you present the IP to your audiences, which that leverages with brands, that builds equity for you. For example, when people heard LeBron James initially turned down, can't remember who offered him 10 million before he got a Nike deal. And he was still in high school. And he turned down 10 million. When I was in secondary school, anyone offered me 10 million. Shit, I'm like, yeah, where do I sign? But to just have that discipline, to think that it's going to happen for me. Now, I also understand the other side, right? You're here in Nigeria, you got to feed yourself. If you have a family, it's tough. So I understand that side. So it's you know, sometimes it's easy for us to come and say, do this. No, I know it's not. I know a lot of the guys that I rock with in the entertainment industry, and Toyosi knows. I know what they're going through. They got families. So yeah, of course you're gonna do 4 films in a month on YouTube at 5 million or 4 million a pop. That feeds my family. So I understand that, but I just say to them all the time, just find a little time to plan for the bigger pictures. The platform and industry volatility is ownership. I'm not saying that's the only, but that is your best way if you own. Everyone talks about it when 50 Cent did the deal with Vitamin Water, where he said he doesn't want to, don't pay me for the commercial, I want equity. Now brands here a bit afraid of that question. So we're like, okay, you don't want to give me equity, right? That's fine. But this fee, we got to tie it to something. But when you tie it, so for example, if you're doing an endorsement deal for, I don't know, a beverage company, right? Be brave enough to say, okay, this fee, I'll take a little bit. But you got to tie it to the upside, the sales. That makes you work harder. That makes them work harder. Do you know what I mean? If they're selling 100,000 extra bottles because of you, why aren't you earning from them? Okay, you don't want to give me equity in your company? Okay, fine. But this fee that you're saying you're paying me for a year, you're not asking me to do everything in the world. I must post 20 times. I must come to 50 events. I must do live. Do you know what I mean? You got to make it work for yourself. And that's why I really wanted brands to be in this room. And I'm hoping Tosi will help me get brand specific. Because I need to talk to them. Because all this, you call and you say, the deliverables are... Like, what? Someone reached out and they wanted to be in a YouTube film. And they sent, these are the deliverables. Okay, you want to be in scene? You want me to do BTS? You want us to put your logo at the end of the thing? It's not an infomercial. Do you know what I mean? Don't be afraid to have direct conversations. What's the worst that can happen? They'll say no. That is the worst that can happen. They're not going to kill you. Not that people are afraid to say no. My old man always used to tell me, if it gets too emotionally expensive, just walk out of the deal. I'm never afraid to walk out of a deal. And we do it all the time. Sometimes I don't have a choice because the talent will be like, I ain't doing that. But that spurs me to say, before we even get to me speaking to the talent, I'm like, nah, we're not doing that. Next slide. Right. So this is I'm gonna run through this because I do want you guys to take some questions. So this model is our model. This is our operating model. This is where we are, right? This is what's happening. Talent, IP, capital, market access. It's all about exponential value for you. Excuse me. So you're able to control all these things. So if you control your IP creation, so if you're creating your own IP, your own films, you're writing your own books, your own podcasts, whatever, you're controlling what happens in all these spaces. You know, if you're making a film, you control who licenses it, where it's going on streaming. If you're going to do an event, if you're going to do merch, if you're in music, you're in publishing, you know, you control all these things. I think it's important. The opportunities are there. And why I always, it is a bit of an unstoppable model if you sit down and study it and make it work. I mean, this is 30 years we've been doing this. So in the beginning I said, you just used to put talent out for hire. Your manager would just say, I've got Harris in Atlanta. I think they're going to be really good in this film. This is their fee. Okay? And you get paid a fee and then, you know, you go. So once you become the co-owners of the factory, your factory, talent without IP, you're replaceable. But if you own the IP, how are they going to replace you? If you own part of what you're in, what you're producing, how are they going to replace you? They can't. The studios can't say no. The brands can't say no. Can say no, sorry. But audience loyalty is non-transferable. Because if you got the audience, how are they going to say no? How's the brand going to say, yeah, we don't want you, but we know you got 10 million people that follow you? That brand manager's boss should be the next day asking the question. Do you know what I mean? But on the flip side, relationships matter. The biggest thing I have going for me is my relationships. There's no country I can't go to and I don't know someone or someone who knows someone or someone who can put me on. You know? And to do that, you got to be very sure about yourself, very confident. Don't be afraid to ask, because you got to manage your relationships too. So I'll talk more about what it means for talent, because there's not too many brands in here. I think you should own something, right, as a talent. Whether it's a format, a show, a character, a persona, franchise, a podcast, short film, digital series, if you're into sports. Because you gotta give yourself the best chance and tell yourself your career is no longer built on auditions. It's proof of demand, and that's your audience. Proof of demand. I get the whole vibes and all of that stuff, but you need infrastructure. You know, your content calendar, your team, advisory, production pipeline, brand playbook, audience, all these things you can build for yourself initially until you're at a place where you can get a team. Do you know what I mean? And it's so easy to make yourself look like a team, even though it's an individual. When I started my company, it was just me. But if you emailed me, you think that Mary's and you think Tom is my accountant, you just gotta play the game. It's all a game. Life, you know what I mean? Have fun while doing it. Brands now want to deal with founders. They want you to have stories, worlds, formats, characters, community. That's what they're investing in. They want people who can drive product adoption. When you do a brand deal, that's what they're telling you, basically. And you got to be able to have that conversation. You got to be able to school them on what they need as a brand. Too many talent just wait for the brand to tell them what they want to do. You got to tell the brand what you think will work for them. You know, Michael Jordan's mom, when she was negotiating for MJ, that first sneaker deal, and they were like, "Oh, we don't do royalty payments." You know, and what did she say? She said, "It's different when my son's in that shoe." Nobody knows Nike, but when my son's in that shoe, till today, $2 a shoe sold worldwide. Kanye was the next living proof of that being possible. And I think Nigerian talent can be in a position to do the same thing at the right time. These brands come in and they're taking us for granted a little bit. We've got to change the game. I put recession proof, but I mean future proof yourself. If film and TV shrink, you still have digital merch, tours, fan base, IP licensing. You're still able to monetize your online community. And I think that's so important. Next slide. I won't go through this, there's not too many. Next slide. It's for sports, not. Next one. Next one. Sorry, hold on. Hold on. So for management companies, for Toyosi, you're no longer managing talent, you're building mini studios around each talent. So when we say we wrap IP around the talent, that's what you're doing. So you control production. Your teams now need to do all these things. Production, editing, writing. So you have this. So you're able, it's not like you're running a mini studio. I'm not so interested in taking a commission off my talent. I take an equity stake in any IP they have. So whatever happens to that IP, we're still getting paid. But if I take a commission, it's one time, right? But it's harder work because now we're also financing. We've got to be able to finance. We're going to be able to raise finance. So you got to bring deals, deal flow, not auditions, business development, brand conversation, distribution partnerships. You got to expand the global reach. You got to go wherever you need to go to find the deals. You have to create, this one is quite important, right? Monetization ecosystems so that it continues to feed whatever you're doing. It's a forever, IP, brand, distribution, digital events, community, all those things must be a forever feeding cycle. The biggest projects we're working on right now is the self-distribution opportunities. So I don't have to beg some distributors to give me that chance. And then you got to build talent that cross markets, and your company has to cross markets. And once you have relationships, you can do that. It's an email. It's every interaction at events like this or film festivals or conferences, every interaction helps you do this. Do you know what I mean? Back in the business cards, let me take your number, but make it functional. What happens after conferences and festivals, the follow-up is 20-25%. You forget. I have business cards I find in my suitcase. I'm like, oh. But even when you remember, just send it. I remember we met. Reignite the conversations. If you meet a producer, now you got to be tactful. I have a rule. If you see me in a social space, don't give me your 5x8, your headshot. Don't tell me you want to be an actor. You can say, I love what you do. I know you do this. Is there a chance for us to have a conversation at a later stage? It's like you as an actor or celebrity, you're trying to have dinner, you're in a restaurant, and somebody's, please, can I take a picture? You'll be like, man, just let me. I mean, it's different for you guys because you have to be cool, you know. But sometimes, you know, you can say, not right now. And that's what I always do. And this one, you must think like a venture capitalist. Every project is a startup. Do you know what I mean? So you can find investment early, whether it's your sweat equity or your talent sweat equity. You build that value, and the upside always, 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 always. Even when you think you're, if you're in a deal and you're negotiating, even when you think you're losing, but if you constantly focus that you must get the long-term upside, you're winning. The new playbook is simple. You're the platform. You're building a growth engine. So being a talent manager, you know, people see us sometimes as gatekeepers. Like people always say, why are you gatekeeping your talent? I'm like, I know my talent inside out. I've worked with one of them for 16 years. I know what he wants. Like, I'm not gatekeeping. I'm telling you that he's not interested in this. Do you know what I mean? So you have to surround yourself with people who are able to back you when you're not in the room. People are able to, when they talk about you and you're not in the room, you can trust them wholeheartedly. It's hard to find. Hard to find. Packaging is no longer controlled by agencies, controlled by creators, managers, and brands. If you own IP, you're able to survive. So everyone, talent, brands, sports, creators, you've got to build ownership. Stop relying on luck, right? And I'll tell you something about luck. There's this thing called the surface area of luck equals doing and telling. Luck equals doing and telling, right?
Doing and telling?
Doing plus telling.
Okay.
Right, so you're doing, but you're also telling the world about it. That's really what built, when they say, this is luck. Do you know what I mean? And the guys who founded Stripe, you know Stripe? Who bought Paystack? These Irish brothers, that's how they built their business. That what they'll do is, they'll do the work, create the codes and build the platform, but they'll now create a marketing system where they'll tell everyone about it. What that means is they're telling everyone, and that's building an audience. And Stripe just became the biggest payment thing because they were doing it, but they were telling everybody. So the founder created this thing, the surface area of luck. If you Google it, you see what it is. I never thought of luck that way. We always think luck is something that's that just happens by chance, but you can actually turn it into a controllable thing by doing and telling. Next slide. We've got about 3 minutes. I'll take 5 minutes for every time these guys are slow. So basically, right? Culture is shifting. We see that every day. Platforms are shifting. Talent markets are global. I haven't even talked about AI on purpose, because AI isn't going anywhere. It's part of our fabric, right? Who uses ChatGPT? Who uses ChatGPT? If you don't use ChatGPT, you're not going to survive. That's the basic level. But you've got to know how to use it, right? You think this you can? I know some of you are thinking this was I know how to use ChatGPT. These are my own words. But the starting point was ChatGPT. I'm not afraid, because if you're not using AI, we'll meet on the other side. You come and say, Mr. Fels, how's heaven? Very well. Are you enjoying yourself? Yes. It's warm. It's nice. You call, I'm on the other side. Why? Because I didn't use AI. That's what's gonna happen. You just gotta be in the game. I don't agree with AI in terms of being in films and all this AI artists and stuff like that. I'm an old guy. I'm a traditionalist. If you can sing, you can sing. I don't need a machine. No, why am I gonna? No, I'm not gonna pay. No, I don't like all of that stuff with AI. But everything else that AI enables us to do what we do and help us be better, I'm with that. The last point, if you see, a lot of the NBA, NFL players are building media networks. All of them, Giannis, all of them, they're turning themselves into, because they're able to hire. Of course, if you're on 300 million a year, you can hire whoever you want, right? But they also realize they're not gonna play ball forever. I just want you to remember these things. Do this thing. Sit at home and just figure it out. Just write, plan it. If it doesn't sound right, do it again. Those things for you as a talent. For Toyosi, packaging pipelines, 3 revenue plays as a management business. And on that note, thank you guys.